Hello and welcome back to the What the Falk Sunderland preview podcast as the lads look forward to their first Saturday 3 p.m. kickoff in over a month as we welcome Cardiff City to the Stadium Light this weekend. We've had a good 5 or 6 days after enjoying a big win over Sheffield Wednesday last Friday, but it's time to get back down to business ahead of the weekend and to preview the game at the weekend. We have returning guest and Cardiff fan Tom to join me. Tom, we're both in the same city, well we were last time, a Cardiff fan from Glasgow, a Sunderland fan that lives in Glasgow. How are you doing? Are you alright?
I'm very good, thanks. How are you?
Yeah, getting by in the middle of a house move. Like, there's a big reason I've never done video podcasts. I definitely am pleased I don't do them because my house is upside down at the moment and it's not in the best state. But I'm getting there, mate. Not too bad. Look, I watched the game last night. I actually sat and watched your game for once just to kind of frustrate myself further at how annoying Burnley are. But let's pretend I didn't and start from the top. You lost 2-1, becoming the first team to score a league goal against them in 2025 or so, Google tells me. It was a tight game, like I say, I watched it myself. But what did you make of the performance?
It was frustrating. It was one of those ones, it was textbook Cardiff for a lot of this season when we've played teams that are just like a step above from us. Like Burnley, far and away better team than us. I wouldn't try and claim otherwise. But we just do this super annoying thing where we start so slow and just give teams a little bit too much respect. Um, Happened against Sheffield United when we lost there. They weren't particularly great either. Just before Christmas, we were worse, but like they were there for the taking. And the goal came at what I thought was a good time. I thought, first time that James Trafford has conceded in God knows how long. Sorry, any Cincinnati Bengals fans for that one. Um, and there was kind of a feeling that we might have been able to get something from it. And honestly, we probably should have. I think we were unlucky not to. Salic hit the crossbar at one point. Will Fish put it just wide right at the end. And it just kind of goes to show that when we commit to having a go at teams playing a bit more of the attacking style that Omar Rizza is trying to implement, like we can cause some damage. And I really think that going forward now for the rest of the season, we should play the two strikers up top. Just because they're two very different kind of players, but at times it's starting to look like there's a bit of a link there. We saw it against Hull last week when we beat them at the Cardiff City Stadium, and I think we kind of saw it last night in the second half when Callum Robinson came on. They both complement each other really well, and if with some big games coming up as well at home, the ones which will basically decide if we stay up or not, if we can get that partnership kind of going just in time for those games, that could be really, really big for us going forward.
Looking at like your recent results, it's some teams do this. You can't make head nor tail of it. You're on a strange little run. You've picked up really valuable wins against Derby and Hull, who are obviously right next to you in the table. You've also then picked up a point against Bristol City, who are in the playoff spots or near about. Plymouth right next to you as well. You've picked up a point there. But then you've lost 7-0 to Leeds and you've lost against Pompey, who are also right next to you. Yeah, how do you sum up the form over the last 5, 7 games? Because you cannot really make head nor tail of that as someone who hasn't watched all the games, to be honest.
Yeah, it's really weird. It's quite a tough one to sort of come into any real analysis, but that's just been honestly the bottom half of the championship this year. Everyone from probably Oxford United down, who's in that relegation battle and have been for quite some time. Um, we just go through these periods of doing quite well. We play all right for a month and then just fall off a cliff a little bit. And then for some reason just come back okay and put a little decent run together. So I'm hoping we're going to have that little okay run at a quite a good time for us, an important time, some big games coming up. But January we played pretty well. We had a good win against Swansea at home. February we were woeful, and now we've had a game against Burnley, which we probably should have won, a big win against Hull. Um, but that's just been everybody. Oxford United, I thought they were kind of away from relegation after their decent run around Christmas time, and now they just don't look like scoring goals. They've massively dried up there, and they've been dragged right into it. And now Luton, I thought they were going to be kind of gone. They got a big win against Portsmouth last weekend, and all of a sudden, if the players that are there can get a little bit of belief going, you wouldn't bet against them to try and make a bit of a push when they were dead to rights 2 weeks ago. I thought they finished bottom of the league. They looked absolutely awful, and it's it's just been frustrating from our perspective, and definitely teams in that sort of like maybe bottom six or seven, in that nobody's really been able to put together that solid run where you think, a couple more wins and we're safe, or like we're out of it. I think probably Swansea the only exception, but it's just been the consistency's been a problem for us all year, and it's just the one thing that's not really gone away.
Looking at Plymouth, and I thought Plymouth had started getting out of it because they got a good point at Sunderland, and then I think we all seem to beat Liverpool, but there's some good results. I think they beat Millwall 5-1, and then I looked at the table today and I was like, oh, the 5 points adrift. Oh well. And I think that has happened a lot of the season, but like the kind of the plus point maybe with Cardiff was we obviously spoke before the season began, before I knew Sunderland were going to have a good season and be like in that top four teams, before I knew Cardiff were going to be in relegation trouble, where we'd finished 16th. Yes, we'd made some good signings, but you'd also made some good signings in the summer on paper, and we thought you weren't too far away from the playoffs last year. I said, where do you think you might finish? You went, look, I'd be happy with like top 10, but why not go for the playoffs? Like, we've signed some good players, and I largely agreed with it. And then I remember watching after about 5 or 6 games into the season going, hang on, Cardiff haven't won a game in eight or something like that it was. It took you ages to get that first win. I think, you see, this is odd because we played your first game of the season and I thought, good win that. Because Cardiff away, first game of the season, I know you went on to have a not particularly good few weeks after that, but a lot of the games you want at the start of the season, Cardiff away is not the easiest on paper, at least. And then you played Burnley the week later, and I had a Burnley fan because we played Burnley the week later, and I said, "Oh, you beat Cardiff 5-0. Like, how bad are Cardiff?" And he was like, "No, they were all right actually." Like, it's really hard to explain that just everything we hit went in the back of the net, and they were actually all right. Could have been 1 or 2 nil up, but ultimately it took you ages to get going. So the fact that you even out of relegation is quite a big thing. But what went wrong so early in the stages of the campaign?
I think the kind of strength of schedule didn't help. When we had to play Sunderland home first game, we had Burnley away, we had Leeds at home quite early. There was a South Wales derby at the Liberty or the Swan Carmel, whatever they're calling it today, um, which we always play terrible down west. So to get a draw there was actually quite a good result, especially with the start that we had. And we played away to Derby and played horrible. I think we lost 1 or 2 nil. I tried to blank it out, to be honest. And it's just when we were kind of in that rut after a bit of expectation, it's sort of that feeling that like we only scored one goal in that whole time in the draw against Swansea. And it's just that kind of thought then, doubts start to creep in. And it's like, well, we're supposed to be far better than the position that we're in. So that didn't help. And then Errol Bullock gets the sack, which was absolutely the right thing to do. Apparently, he'd fallen out with a couple of players, but I don't know. That might just be Twitter talk. Um, Rizza came in, and we've gone on that amazing run of form. We get some really good results. We beat Norwich 2-1 at home, which, on paper, that should not have happened at all. But it did. And, the reports that come out are the players love him. And they really enjoy playing for him. They like this sort of vision he has, the type of football that he wants to play. The board kind of just sat and twiddled their thumbs for a bit and thought, oh, maybe we'll give him the job permanently. Maybe we won't. The time to give him the job was after that Norwich game, but they didn't. They just kind of sat on their hands a bit. And then all of a sudden we go on another bad run and a bit more sort of uncertainty creeps in. And then they decide around December time to give it to him permanently when we've lost, I don't know how many in a row and haven't won since like early to mid November. So then, morale's not at the highest around the club at that point. And it's just been, kind of the story of the season, really. We go on runs where we actually look quite decent and look as if we can string a couple of decent results together. And just because how tight it is down towards the bottom end of the table, I think, or maybe we could get that maybe, I don't know, 15th or 14th place finish, and then a week later, because it seems like we're playing twice a week every week and have since like, mid-November. It only takes two results with you could be 5, 6 points clear at the bottom. Within a week, that can go back to you're out of relegation on goal difference. Like it's just been that sort of season with everybody really, and kind of not having that consistency has sort of killed us a bit. And it's been frustrating because the football at times has been okay, at times it's been horrendous. But it's just that kind of not being able to finish our chances as they come. Saw it a little bit last night against Burnley, and it just gets really frustrating to watch. So quite a few things have kind of gone wrong to make this sort of perfect kind of storm of just mediocrity once again.
think I quite like the fact that Errol Bullock got the bullet. Like that's quite that it's just perfect, really, isn't it, for a man of my own profession. But moving on from my terrible puns because it's all about SEO and search these days, not clever puns, I suppose. Rizza is quite an interesting one for the people old enough to remember him. He was like an Arsenal youth team player that never really got anywhere. Had a career in the sort of low divisions. I think not didn't get anywhere with Arsenal. Should I say he's done a bit more in football than I have. But his only real managerial experience outside of his 7 game spell at Leyton Orient in 2007 was with Chess Hunt, who I had to like Google, and I think they're in the seventh or eighth tier of football. Even Google doesn't know. His win rate is 28.13, Ricardo. Look, it doesn't sound great. Okay, I think it's 9 wins in 21 or something like that. But I think when you're down the bottom of the division, like we saw last year with Danny Rowe, sometimes when you're stuck right in it, it might not look that great, but you can see the changes inside of things. Like, is there at the end of the season? How are Cardiff fans feeling about him at the moment? Because I imagine from the outside looking in, and no offense again to Rizza, but it doesn't look like you don't want the Chess Hunt manager, is what I'm trying to say. It's not wanting to get it's not wanting to get you massively excited, but he has done a decent job. As you touched on before, there's some good results that he pulled in there. And I thought you were all right last night. I think Burnley are just boring, annoying Scott Parker Burnley, aren't they?
Yeah, it's such a tricky one to kind of analyze as well, because you can see the game he's trying to play. When we sort of play to our best strengths and we implement sort of the style he kind of wants to adapt, where we pass the ball around quick, we actually get bodies forward, we, get Ruben Colwill to do the occasional just insane 20, 30 yard pass right through the air, which goes, right to one of our wingers' feet. We actually look all right, but it's just that sort of final third. It was Roy Keane and Ian Wright said it on Friday in the Villa game. So the big frustration from them, from a Cardiff perspective, was just that we weren't quick enough in the final third, and that's just been the story of the season. Like, where you really want to kind of be getting everyone forward and like getting your sort of best individual bits of quality, so to speak, or kind of fast build up play. We don't have that speed in the final third, and it's just same thing, like a little bit lethargic at times. When we kind of turn it on and we get that speed in the final third, that's when we actually harm teams. I saw it a lot in the second half against Swansea, in the derby at home this season, when all 3 goals came in the second half, and that's when we turned out of it. So it's like, go figure, we can be a decent team, but it's just sort of, at the minute it's frustrating. I think Omar's doing the best he can with the squad he's got. He's had really, really hard time of it as of late as well. He lost his dad just before the Swansea game, and I think he was really close to his old man as well, kind of like stuff he's put on Instagram. So, I'm absolutely desperate for him to succeed. And to be honest, the way the club was when he took over, and the kind of season we've had, I don't know who would have taken the job anyway, um, apart from like a Sam Allardyce, and two, if they really could have done much better. Because realistically, I don't think any sort of, especially now, I don't think any kind of young and up and coming exciting manager would take this job, because if it went bad and we go down, then that's a stain on the record forever. Really, it won't come off the CV. So I think he is going to stay till the end of the season. We're definitely not sacking him before that. And I don't know. Once again, we're going into another summer where this will be the third one on the bounce, where we won't know if our manager at the minute is going to be in charge next season. And it's just such a dangerous cycle to get yourself into, because you're not going to make progress, and players won't stick around if there's no kind of clearly communicated long-term vision there.
No, not at all, mate. One thing that I feel like might keep you up, and this is literally from me going on Google and doing some highlight watching for 5 minutes before we did this, sort of. You signed a few players in January, 3 in total, which is not a bad amount in January. But there's one player that clearly stands out, which is Youssef Salek, which you signed from Swedish side Sirius. Yes, you seriously did. He's terrible. I need to stop these puns, Jesus. But 4 goals in 9 games so far. You touched before about not really being able to finish chances. He got the goal last night for you. Does he look like the kind of striker that will? I mean, he's started well, but like starting well is different to maintaining that form. Does he look like the kind of person that can score enough goals to keep your head above water and then kick on next season?
I think so. And because he's kind of that more sort of traditional number nine, so to speak. Not many of them really exist in football anymore, maybe apart from like Chris Wood at Forest, but there's not a great deal of his kind of style of or caliber of player anymore. And Callum Robinson, it seems so harsh to say it, gets given he scored like 12 or 13 goals for us this year. We were kind of missing that kind of striker because even though Robinson's quality has been our best player by an absolute country mile, what we missed was someone who will sort of get in that 8 yard box and put away those chances.
He's more
Robinson's
like a
great
winger, isn't he,
at,
Robinson?
yeah,
From
he's,
memory, Robinson's ball coming from the sides as opposed to like
yeah,
an out and out number nine. Yeah, I get what you mean.
yeah, like he's amazing at winning the ball from midfield. He supports the wing play incredibly well. The reason why we attack from the wing so much, I reckon, is just because he's that good at it. But then as soon as you're getting into the box, you're kind of missing that presence to put away the chances, and that's what Salic brings. So he suits our style of play quite well. Had we signed him in the summer, it's all hearsay. It's easy to say if buts or maybes. I think we'd be in probably a better position. Not my playoff prediction because I think I was a bit excited. Yeah, but I don't think we'd be in a relegation battle by any stretch.
Looking at the sort of the season as it has been, we're entering, I think it's like the last sort of, it feels like 10, 11 games. And look, it's crunch time. Like you say, so many teams can get dragged into that. Thankfully, and I guess it's not that, I'm not that thankful because I'd rather be in the top two, but the top four are the only teams that have like kind of clear distance in the league. Then you've got fifth all the way down to like 11th, 12th that can leapfrog each other sort of weekly, and then 13th all the way down to 24th that can seemingly all leapfrog each other with a good run, like you said before. I'm going to put you on the spot a little bit, and bear in mind, this is just me asking a question. It doesn't mean that he's forthright, Tom, and saying we're definitely going to do this. But you're currently, I think, 5 points clear of relegation spots. At the time of speaking, how confident are you that Cardiff will be a championship side next year?
I'm pretty confident. I just think with the games that we've got to come, we have to play Stoke, Oxford United, and Luton at home within the next month, and that's absolutely massive. Those will be the games that will kind of decide whether we stay up or not. And I just think, as of late, I saw enough against the win against Hull. Um, I saw enough last night, in all honesty, and I think I saw enough against Villa to think that we can cause those teams quite serious problems. And kind of when it comes to sort of, with the exception of Portsmouth, those relegation sort of battle games, we do quite well at home. Um, like we beat Hull, we beat Derby at home, and I don't know, I just have this feeling that we have just enough to keep us up this year. There's times where I thought, we've flown a little too close to the sun this time. Um, and this is be the year that is finally all going to go wrong. But now, like you said, we're what 10, 11 games away. I think it's not going to be a massive points total to stay up this year. There's no kind of pattern either. The last couple of years, it used to be Magic 50, but I think a team went. I think a team stayed up with like 42 or 43 last season. There's no real kind of indication of what sort of magic number we need. I think if we can get 3 wins at home against those three other teams and a draw somewhere else. We might sneak a win somewhere because it's just the championship. It's a weird league. You win or draw games that you're kind of not supposed to. We still have to play Wednesday. We still have to play West Brom again. And just say, if you get like 10 more points, then I hope, really hope that kind of should be enough to keep us up. So at this time, I'd say I think I've seen enough in the last couple of weeks. I think there's enough quality in the squad to say that we'll be a championship team next year, but it's gonna be quite close.
Do you feel like with the games you've got, I've often felt like this when Sunderland have been in relegation trouble, where if we don't win those games or we don't get enough points from those games you mentioned before, then you kind of just go, well, okay, we're not good enough to stay up. You've kind of got the games there to find out whether you're worthy of staying up, if that makes sense. I don't think that's not really a fair thing to say. It's saying that people are worthy or not. God, I'm like bringing them down to horrible, horrible statements there. But you get my point. Like it's kind of the games you've got. If you don't win them, you can probably not accept it, but almost go, well, okay, we haven't been good enough. If you win it, you go, okay, well, my England's were right.
Yeah, absolutely, I agree. There's some pretty horrid teams down around
Mm,
the bottom end of the table, and like
yes.
not to and not to name any names, obviously, that wouldn't be fair. Not to slag any teams out, but if you can't beat some of the teams around there, if you're losing at home to some of those sides, then what chance do you really have at the end of the day? You know what I mean? So yeah, I do think we have enough. But it's the championship. I'm sure plenty is going to change in the next 2 months or so, as is it's fun for the neutrals, but once you're in it, it's just horrible.
You said that you don't want to pinpoint anyone out. And look, this is not a video podcast, but just so everyone listening knows, Tom had two big signs, cardboard signs with Stoke City and Luton Town on it. So that's who he's saying shit. No, he hasn't really. Um, I think here's a random stat, right? And this again is a Google stat, but I have actually looked well into this because I was like, that's a really weird stat. We've only lost one game at home this season, which was Hull, which was the last game that we played. And Hull became the first side since Cardiff and Swansea, who are actually the only teams that have won back-to-back games at the Stadium of Light since our return to the Championship. So I want to put you on the spot again. How confident are you that you could be the first side to win three games at the Stadium of Light since our return to the Championship?
It's
It's a
one of
weird
those
stat, that
ones.
isn't it?
Yeah, that's a really strange stat.
Why do Welsh teams in Hull decide that they want to win games at like, why are Hull there? You're not even close to a hill. It's like Jesus.
Yeah, I didn't know that. That's a strange stat.
I could be wrong, but I looked at it and I was like, I'm sure. I knew Cardiff had won because you've won 1-0 the past two games, like proper like
Yeah.
shithoused us twice. And then coincidentally, we've won three games at Cardiff in a row without conceding a goal. We've won 1-0 Dennis Cirkin, 2-0 Joe Benadil Sheesh, and of course 2-0 at the start of the season, which was Luke O'Nien and Jack Clark. And you've won 1-0 twice over the past 2 years. You could make it three wins in a row to become the first team to win three games in a row. Or Swans, you can also copy that. But it was quite weird when I looked at it because I was like, oh yeah, Hull have done it 2 years in a row. Then I was like, oh yeah, Cardiff did it. I was like, is there anyone else? Surely I can't remember anyone. Then I looked and the only other team Swansea. So it's like Wales and this random team in Humberside. I don't know why. But anyway, I'm just rambling now. How confident are you that you can do it again?
It's one of those ones, and it's like every time Sunderland comes to Cardiff City Stadium, it's a bit of a bogey team because we never play well there. In the same respect that every time we kind of go to the stadium, we're sort of a bogey team there. So it's weird. It's just one of those games I got a feeling about. I'm not sure that we will win just because of the strength of Sunderland. It's a really good Sunderland team. I think the top four this year, far and away, best four teams in the league, obviously because the top four, but like the kind of the gap in quality to fifth, um, and below that. But I don't know. I just have this feeling that we might be able to sneak something. Um, I think I'd be pleased with a point. I kind of said like at the start of this week, if we can get through, I think best case scenario would have been 4 points. That's not going to happen. I'd be really pleased with a point because they're two really tough games to have back to back. Um, so I don't know. I'm kind of leaning towards maybe we can get a point out of it, but now I've said that it'll probably be 4-0 down in 20 minutes because that's how it usually goes. I was quite confident before Leeds and we lost 7-0, so I might take that with a pinch of salt, but I don't know. I just have a feeling that we might be able to again just make it a horrible game like we have the last two times we've been there, and just I don't think we'll win this time. I think our luck might run out a bit. Right, I could see us kind of nicking a probably quite undeserved draw because it's just the Cardiff City way, to be honest.
It's funny, like as you were like explaining it, I fancied it there. I thought I've just sat him on a podcast. an opposition podcast and ask him to bet against his own team. Like, what a stupid thing to say. You can never bet against your own team. I think we worked out a few years ago, if I put together all my predictions for the season, I think it was the first year we won the championship, where we finished sixth, to be fair. We would have finished comfortably in second by about 10 points. So, proof that you never bet against your own team, but you probably should. Two more questions, standard questions as always. On the flip side, like I said, we've managed to beat Cardiff in all of our visits to the Cardiff City Stadium. I think we've got a really good record there. I remember nicking a 2-2 draw after we were 2-0 down after like 83 minutes or something. Fraser Campbell scored, if I remember rightly. But yes, by the by, I'm rambling. I'm tired, as you can tell. So I want to cast your mind back that most recent game at the start of the season, which we touched on a little bit. Who were the players that impressed you most on the day? Because obviously, we had Jack Clark that day. I'm aware of that, but you can include them if you like. But who are the players that stood out for you on the opening day of the season?
Um, Luke O'Nien was brilliant. But I'm a really big fan of him anyway. And I've been for quite a while because
Me too.
he's a good player. I remember first seeing him in like the Netflix documentary and coming across as like this really quite sweet guy, sort of has that sort of wholesome butter wouldn't melt look. Reality, he's a bit of a shit house, and I love that because of it. You know, I love those type of players. When it's not happening to my team, it's hilarious. So he played really well that day. Joe Bellingham had a good showing as always, because why wouldn't he? He's absolutely class. And there was a defender whose name I've forgotten,
Dennis Serkin.
Dennis
Lovely
Sirkin.
Dennis.
That was it. He played
You were
really
just
well.
mesmerized by how good looking the man is.
And he is an handsome
Gorgeous
bugger, to
boy,
be fair.
handsome boy, putting us both to shame.
um, but yeah, no, he played really well that day. It was like we put together some quite decent attacks from what I remember, and we didn't actually play that bad, despite the fact we lost. But he just had a answer for absolutely everything we threw at him. From the wings, from crosses that went in, he just seemed to be there for everything, and ended up getting the assist for O'Nien as well. So he, yeah, he definitely stood out for me as like a good player, and I'd never heard of him before, and he just pops up and puts in this great performance. I'm like, Where's he been hiding?
Because he was previously made of paper mache in the seasons beforehand. He originally was came from Spurs' academy and then couldn't seem to stay fit for like 2 seasons. But he's done all right this year. I mean, he'll get injured now. I've said that. Like he'll get injured in training probably tomorrow when I read into this. But no, Dennis has been a bit off form recently. But I do love a bit of Dennis Serkin, and it's not just because he's good looking. I kind of asked you before for a prediction in a roundabout way, but I'll ask you for a score prediction as final question. I have been a bit, how do I put it? Um, Pessimistic in the past few weeks. I said we wouldn't beat Sheffield Wednesday, we did. But then I said we'd draw against Hull and we got beat. So maybe I'm realistic, I don't know. But I do fancy us to win it. I just think swings and roundabouts, are we going to lose 3 games in a row to Cardiff? Probably not. It's not to say we won't draw, but I think bit of a confidence booster last week. I fancy us to take it 1-0 in a game that should be tighter than we'd hope, but does you no favours at the same time. But where are you going with it?
I'm gonna, I think I'm gonna go with a draw. I'm gonna go with a 2-2, because
Ooh.
I'm not sure I trust us to not just have a funny 25 minutes at the start. Um, I can see it probably playing out quite similar to Burnley yesterday, to be honest. In that we'll show you guys a lot of respect, maybe a bit too much respect, because we're playing away from home as well. Um, at the start, and that'll just, that'll kind of ruin us a bit. Probably sneak a undeserved goal just before half time, and then manage to actually put away one of the trillion chances that we produced. So I think 2-2. It would be a very kind of Cardiff game where we go down quite badly early and then get a probably quite undeserved point at the end. But I don't know. I just have this feeling that we might come away with something in before we lose like 5-1 now. So
Probably the fact that you've absolutely shithoused 2 wins over the past 2 years, it would make me feel quite confident as well. I absolutely fucking hated both of those games for the record, and it's stuck in my mind quite a bit, as you can probably tell. But Tom, always got to catch up from the opposite side of Glasgow, mate, via the medium of Zoom. I hope you're all right. Have an absolutely shite weekend, but lovely rest of the year after that, mate.
yeah, you too.